I've definitely always been life is too short to stay in a job that you're not happy in. So I don't believe in doing that, because in a job, you're spending more time with those people than you are with your family. I was just like, no, this isn't working for me. So came back out of London and went to work more locally at Ashridge Business School. And that's actually where I met Alex, who's my business partner. We worked together there for whatever, it was about 4 years. And then he got the opportunity to buy this business. We were talking about risk, and I said, oh, no, I don't think I'm really a risk taker. And he just looked at me and said, sorry, excuse me? I said, well, I don't really. He said, you gave up a really good job to take a chance on running a business that neither of us know anything about.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Entrepreneur TV. Today is all about plants, certain ones in particular, ferns and pines. How much do you know about these plants? All I know is that I actually at times can be the chief plant killer. So today's podcast will be a good one. It will be very educational for me to be able to not kill my plants. Róisín from HSK, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thank
and
you.
Hopefully you'll point me in the right direction and give me some more green fingers.
Hopefully.
So just about HSK.
Yep.
What is it that you actually do? Just in a nutshell. We'll go into it in a little bit in a depth later on, but what is it that you do?
What do? We import tree ferns from Australia, specifically Tasmania, and there's specific Dicksonia Antarcticas that we bring in.
And you have other little elements as well. You've got pines as well, I believe.
Yes, so we do have a Wollemi pine, which is the most interesting history to that one. They thought it was extinct for millions of years, and then suddenly in 1994 it was discovered in the Blue Mountains just outside Sydney in Australia. And basically there's probably around 100 now left in the wild, and only a handful of people know where they are. And we have a huge amount of them in our glasshouse.
So how on earth did you get into this business? Was this like your first and only career, or have you evolved into it?
I've evolved, I suppose. So obviously you can tell by the accent, hopefully, that I'm not from the UK. I'm from Dublin, I'm from Ireland. So I came over for 6 months in 1989 as part of my university degree. And it's been a very long 6 months, 36 years later. My original industry was hospitality. And I did that for about 12 years in London, and then had 2 children. And it just wasn't going to work with 2 kids. So became a full-time mum for a very short period of time, for a few years, and then thought it was time to get another job. So I actually went into a state agency, and I did that.
Same here.
It's great. I actually really enjoyed it. It was really quite good fun, actually. And it was a local business as well. And I started that. I think I was doing 2 Saturdays a month, and then ended up doing 5 days a week quite a number of years later. Then that role got made redundant. So it was time to find something new. So then fell into another industry, or as my family describe it, I've reinvented myself quite a number of times. Me, I just think I got another job. So I went into working with the long-term unemployed, working for a private training company, working on government contracts, which was a real eye-opener for me. And seeing how our taxpayers' dollar, as they say, is spent was a very interesting one as well.
I bet.
And seeing the impact of 2008 on everybody across the board was also quite an eye-opener as well. Then in 2016, after Brexit, that role got made redundant. Had a period of time off, about 6 months, I think. And then again, had to reinvent myself, as I would quote my family, and went into London for about 9 months into another business. But it was the wrong time for our boys, I think, GCSEs and etc. So I only stayed in London for 9 months.
Isn't it?
It is a difficult time, and it's long hours. And I was just like, no, this isn't working for me. So came back out of London and went to work more locally at Ashridge Business School, Ashridge Executive Education. And that's actually where I met Alex, who's my business partner. We worked together there for whatever, it was about 4 years. And then he got the opportunity to buy this business, friends of his parents at a lunch, sitting next to Phil at lunch. And Phil was trying to sell the business at the time, Phil Blackledge, who started the business 23, 24 years ago. And Alex then decided this is what he was going to do. We were all I was part of this whole process in the background. He was telling us what he was up to, obviously, not obviously telling anybody else in the business. And then when he decided he was going to buy it, well, then I kind of said, okay, well, actually, let's do this. Why not? Let's go and do this.
I mean, you say you're like the master of reinvention, but that actually takes... Or your family would. But, the thing is reinventing yourself sometimes to go from role to role, as I know myself. Yeah. You talked about estate agency, same, legal, same. You know what I mean? It's like, it does take a lot of effort and a lot of power. Would you say that you are quite maybe a gutsy lady? You could just go for something?
I remember having this, we were talking, I don't know, a couple of years ago, myself and Alex, and we were talking about risk, and I said, oh no, I don't think I'm really a risk taker. And he just looked at me and said, sorry, excuse me? I said, well, I don't really. He said, you gave up a really good job to take a chance on running a business that neither of us know anything about. So you're not a risk taker. I was like, oh, okay, maybe I am. I never thought about it like that. Okay, yeah, maybe I am. I like change. I like to do different things. I probably get quite bored if I'm doing the same thing for too long. It all becomes a little samey. So as much as it can be stressful and all of that, I think I probably quite like the challenge that it brings as well. And I think also I quite like learning, because every industry you go into, you need to be learning. You need to be doing something else. And they all bring new things that you have to take on board. So you're constantly thinking, you're constantly moving, and, whatever, as my husband would say, I have the art of putting as much into a day as I can possibly get in. Actually, probably way too much, I think is what he says.
Women have a knack of doing that. That we're good at multitasking, and we're certainly good at, packing suitcases and making sure we get the maximum 22 kilogram limit.
Absolutely.
We can get it to a fine art. We have skills. But I think that's actually a wonderful quality that you've got. But, it must take some form of bravery inside of you to say, I know nothing about this business. I'm buying it. I mean, wow.
Yeah, it probably was a little mad, I suppose, if I thought about it too much. I don't really, I just liked the sound of it. And I think I remember saying to my husband, because he was like, he said, it's a long drive. It's an hour and a half from where we live. So, you'll probably kill yourself doing this and whatever else. And I was like, no, it'll be fine. And then he does the usual, you're going to do it anyway, aren't you? And I was like, probably, yes. And I'm very lucky I have a husband who supports me in whatever I decide I'm going to do. So I am very lucky in that way as well. And our two boys have been really good too. They just sort of go, she's off on something new again, I think. So yeah, so I am very lucky. And I suppose I'm lucky because I've surrounded myself, or I'm lucky to be surrounded by really good people as well.
And that actually means a lot. But there's a lot of people, especially when I get to my time of life in this middle age, and
young age.
Yes, young age.
Young age.
We will readdress that. It's a young age. We've still got plenty in us.
Absolutely.
But the thing is that there's a lot of people who'll go through life and they'll do the same job day in, day out. And then when you speak to them, they're really unhappy, especially women in business. They've got a job and they're just doing the 9 to 5. And then all of a sudden they think, I should have started this. I should have done something earlier. How would you encourage another woman to just take that chance?
I don't think it matters what age you are, really. I think it just matters that you've got the motivation to do it. I've definitely always been life is too short to stay in a job that you're not happy in. So I don't believe in doing that, because in a job, you're spending more time with those people than you are with your family. So why would I want to be with people that I don't like being with? So I definitely don't like that. I'm also a never go back person.
Yeah.
I've been there, done that. I remember when my role got made redundant at Oakley's estate agents in Berkhamsted, and I really loved it there. And Michael, who owns it, absolutely got on really, really well with them. And it was really disappointing at the time. And he was gutted, to be fair. It was just 2008 and
everything went pear-shaped, didn't it?
Absolutely, it really did. And he did say to me at the time, when things get a bit better, I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, would you come back? And I said, no, I'm sorry. I said, but you never go back.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good idea.
And I think things change and they're not the same.
No, they're not. And then you've moved on to the next job role that you're doing, or the next career that you've taken on. And that gives you other things. So I just think, no, you're then just going back to do the same thing again. It's not for me. So I would just always say, just take a chance.
Exactly.
Don't do anything you're not happy doing. Life is way too short. And it has such an impact across the board. If you're doing a job and you're not happy there, it impacts the whole family.
does.
It really does.
Totally.
And that's not really fair, particularly if they're being supportive of you, then you're just putting them through hell. So
again.
Yeah, again. So my husband would potentially say, well, she does that anyway sometimes, but hopefully I don't do it too often.
Now, we'll take you back to the beginning. So you've got HSK, all to do with these amazing plants, to be honest with you, trees. You know, did you have to actually sit and learn about these and sort of get green fingers? Or was you sort of actually interested in plants and things even before you bought this business?
So I would never say I'm particularly green fingered. I like the garden to look really nice. I'm not great at going out and doing the stuff in the garden though, but I've got way better actually now. Even our neighbours joke when I'm out in the garden, they're like, are you eating? Are you doing some stuff in the garden? I'm like, yeah. Rude. I can do this, you know. And they're like, you're not making Nick do it. I was like, yeah, I'm helping now. It's really good. But yeah, we had to learn a lot, myself and Alex, actually, to be fair, because we didn't know. We didn't know what we were going into. But Phil, who owned the business, was the most fantastic mentor, the calmest person ever. If I just had that much of his patience and calmness, I would be amazing. I really would be. And he was a fantastic person to teach you so much. Plus our nursery manager, Mark, who knows tree ferns inside out. They were really, really good. So I would say now, and I don't mean this in an arrogant fashion, but I think myself and our team, even those who've come in and joined the business as we've been growing in the last 5 years, we would technically be the experts in them because we deal with them every day.
Yeah.
So you have to know intimately everything that you can about that particular plant. And they're really fascinating anyway.
I just want to come on to that. I mean, let's start first with the tree ferns. I mean, I know I've got a fern. It sits in a container in the corner of my garden. It does its thing.
Sounds unloved.
It's loved, but it just does its thing. It's like got a mind of its own, and I just sort of leave it. It's got a personality, and you're like, "You all right? Yeah, you're fine."
Go for it.
But these are tree ferns. Just explain to people like me who don't really know what one is.
Well, the particular one that we bring in are the Dicksonia Antarctica, and they are grown in Tasmania. That's where ours come in from. And they grow like weeds out there. So when we go out there once a year, and obviously I need to have a 360 head because they're everywhere. And like you're driving around, obviously this is when Alex is driving, not me driving. You just want to look everywhere. They're just everywhere. They're amazing. Like even just the trunk themselves, they're so architectural. And then when they frond up, they just look really, really impressive, the two colours. And they're probably, with my little knowledge of trees, I think they're probably one of the only trees that you can cut off at the base.
Yeah.
And it doesn't die.
Oh.
Because everything goes through the crown, everything goes through the head. So you feed it, you water it into the head. You then, when you do plant it again, it will grow roots. Once it's stable in the ground, it will grow roots again. But if you don't water it through the head or feed it through the head, it's not going to survive. So it's really important that that's how you know. It's not like a normal tree where you, or a normal plant where you'd water around the base. That's not what you do with these ones. You can water the trunk and water around the base, but everything needs to go into the head as well.
So how big do they get, roughly?
Oh, gosh, when you're out in Australia, they can be 30 foot. They're huge. They're humongous. Like we only bring, our standard plants that we bring in would be 1/2 foot to 6 foot. Anything above that would be a special order. But they're really impressive. They come in as a log. So basically it's just this long brown log that comes in, which I think still looks really great. I'm obviously slightly biased because it's our business, but genuinely I think they look really, really great. And then obviously they start to frond up really quickly. They come in refrigerated containers, 40-foot refrigerated containers. Yeah. So it's quite fascinating.
And so, you know, where do they actually grow best? Is there a particular thing that they like? You know, someone's buying on, where do they put it?
So they basically grow best in some shade. They don't. I mean, if you put them in full sun, you can. I wouldn't recommend it, but if you do put it in full sun, you have to make sure that you water it all the time, because once the sun is out, as we've had the weather we've had in the last few weeks, you'd have to be watering it numerous times in a day. It's better off to be in the shade. It prefers the shade because that's where it grows naturally. Yeah. It grows in the rainforest under the canopy of either eucalyptus trees or pine trees. So it's always shaded. So you want to basically emulate where it grows. I mean, it grows roughly about 1 inch a year in Australia, but you're not going to get that in this country.
No.
So if you want a 3 foot, buy a 3 foot.
Buy a 3 foot.
Don't buy the 1/2 foot thinking it's going to grow. It's going to take a long, long time to grow. So don't do that. Buy the size that you want is my recommendation.
And how does it actually cope with our climate? You know, can it grow throughout the winter or?
Yeah, it's pretty hardy actually. The only time can be if we get like the horrendous winters we've had, which was like -10 for a long period of time. But with them, what we always say is you get a horticultural fleece, put a ball of that in the crown, and then the top third, you wrap the top third of it. But do remember that if it is a dry winter, you'll still have to water the plants. Please don't put them in your garage, because we've had a few people.
Oh.
Yeah, we've had garden centres come back to us and say, you won't believe this one. People have put them in their garages. We're like, why would you put it in your garage? There's no light. And then they'd said to them, and you have watered it. No, why would I water it? You're like, oh dear God, it's a live plant. Of course you need to
So it's just going to be like a log then?
Yeah. So please don't do that. Please don't do that. But if you do have one and it does die, because, plants die. That's what they do sometimes. Because I think the trunk is really architectural, I wouldn't get rid of it. I would keep it. You can buy a regular, like the fern you have in your pot. You could plant that into the top. Yeah. And that will continue to grow. Or you can plant orchids in it. Orchids seem to grow really well on them. So you could do something a little bit different. So you've got this really big feature plant with an orchid in it. So it would look really, really different. So there's lots of things you can do. I would never just say, oh, it's dead now, I'm going to throw it out. Figure out what you can do to keep that, architectural piece in your garden, and then look at something else that you can do.
We might need one for one member of our team who's over there. You saw his pitiful plant, didn't you, on his desk? I mean, it needs love, doesn't it?
Definitely.
I think maybe one of them over there actually requires one for Christmas.
Absolutely, but you'd have to keep it alive. We would be checking up on it too.
Yeah, I think I would have.
We'd have to have regular updates that it's still alive. To be fair, they're not actually that difficult to keep once you remember to feed it and water it.
A bit like children.
A bit like children. Just don't forget to do that. It's
and
not
husbands.
A good thing. Yes, it's not a good thing.
They function much better when they're fed and watered, don't they?
Gosh, they really do. Not so, whatever.
Not so grumpy.
Yeah, definitely not so grumpy for sure.
With regards to the tree ferns, is there anywhere where, apart from the garage, where they just wouldn't thrive at all?
No.
Are they fairly hardy in some respects?
They're fairly hardy in a lot of respects, really, other than when it gets really, really, really cold, as I was saying. And if it's too hot and you're not watering it, then that's not great for them. But I think soil-wise, they're pretty good. When we were planting ours, we've got quite a few in our garden now. I think, just on that point, I think it's a real male thing as well. Because my husband likes some flowers, but doesn't like blousy flowers, as he calls them, whatever they are.
Not a pansy lover then.
No, definitely. There's not a pansy in our garden. I can guarantee you that. Alliums and architectural type plants, but I really like those too.
Yeah.
And I was talking to one of our customers the other day, and we were just chatting about them. And I said, I actually think it's a real male thing. And he said, no, I think you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Because we like the greens, the different shades of greens and the browns and the architectural look. So tree ferns are a real guy thing. Yeah. Lots of guys go in to buy them. And it's not just like the woman in the garden likes this or whatever. So yeah, really good though.
But you also do the food for it as well.
We do, absolutely. And I would always say, buy your food. You want to keep that plant. It's an expensive thing that you've just bought. So why would you not want to look after it? You want it to do well. So from April to October, we always say once a week you feed your tree fern. Now you're feeding it this year for next year to ensure that the fronds remain the same length, because it takes a lot of work for that plant to get them. And also if you've just bought it new and it's just come into the country, it's had probably 80 days in a refrigerated container. All of a sudden it comes out and it's in warmth and it's like, oh, wow, I'm awake now. So, that's great. And it might have a little bit of shock because it's also been cut down. So,
yeah,
like exactly. The rest of it would be a shock if we were cut down, I'm sure. So basically then you're going to feed it to make sure that next year it gives the same size fronds, and you feed it year on year. Just to keep it going. It's like anything, like you said, like kids, you need to feed them. So feed your plants.
Kids and husbands.
Yeah, kids and husbands, absolutely.
Now moving on to the other item that you do is these, am I saying this, like Wollemi pines?
Yeah, the Wollemi pine. What
a
story.
When I looked at a picture of one of these, and hopefully the editing team will just can get a picture over and have a look. What strange but really intriguing things they are.
They have a fantastic story. That's the whole thing about them. They thought they were extinct for millions of years. And then in 1994, and again, I can never remember the gentleman's name, but anyway, he was basically walking through the Blue Mountains in a gorge and found these plants and thought they look really familiar. went home and worked out, oh my gosh, they're the Wollemi pine, but they're extinct. Well, no, they're not. So there's about roughly, depending on what website you check, but there's roughly about 100 that are in the Blue Mountains. But there's about half a dozen people, I think, that know where they actually are. And then in the early 2000s, they brought lots of them over because obviously the Australian government were trying to make sure that they don't become extinct again. Yep. So they did lots of cuttings and brought them over. And I think, I don't know if it was Sotheby's or one of them, they got sold for like thousands as far as I'm aware. But Curnock Park Plants down in Cornwall, they were one of the companies that were involved initially. And that's where we get our cuttings from as well. And they're just really nice. There is a reason that they're probably nearly extinct because they're really challenging to propagate.
Well, so we won't be giving that to the team then, will we? Because no, obviously that
to be fair, that would be just setting him up to fail, and I'm not going to do that. That would be just mean. I'm definitely not going to do that to him. But once they get past about, sort of 1 foot to 2 foot, they're great. They do really, really well. But it's just getting them to grow is quite a challenge. They don't like it too hot. They don't like it too cold. They don't like as Mark, my nursery manager, says, they don't like their feet to be cold, their roots. They don't like them to be moved too much.
So that's like a woman then, really, isn't it? When I actually think
we're
about
not as fussy as that.
We don't like being hot. We don't like being cold. We don't like,
Definitely the hot cold part. Definitely that part. Definitely go with that one for sure. But they are lovely. They are quite a different look, I think, as well. And once they get quite big and they get older, they get what they call like a Cocoa Pops bark.
Yes, that's what was intriguing. It was like all bubbly.
Actually, it does. It does. Because when they said it to me, I was like, yeah, whatever. And then they brought me up to show me the trees and I was like, oh, you're right. I see what you mean. It actually genuinely does look like a Cocoa Pops bark. So I was like, wow.
Do you think this is then more for the expert gardener? Is that the customers that you have for those, or people who are just a bit adventurous?
I think a little of both. I think people who know about the Wollemi pine, they will do anything and go anywhere to find them and get one. They really will. We get calls all the time because there's been a bit of a gap in the market now because propagation had stopped during COVID, just due to demands on other businesses, and it's quite a long process to undertake. But it's now propagation. We've started to do some propagation, and other people are doing it now as well for us, which is great. So there'll probably be another year or so before we have any of the small plants to go back onto the market, but the demand is definitely there for them because it's really nice to say, like, if you see fossils from millions of years ago, that's what you see. That's the plant that is that fossil. So how exciting to say I've got that in my garden. How cool would that be? I don't have one in my garden, by the way, but maybe I should have one in my garden. But it would be really cool to be able to say, I hadn't thought about that one. Yeah, it'd be really cool to be able to say, look, I've got in my garden.
Now, the other thing that you're moving into is concept work. Explain what that is.
So we have rebranded earlier on this year. So we've freshened up the look of the business, the logo, and we're just trying to think of, what other things can you do? So one of my things is you walk into a garden centre, and I actually sometimes find it quite overwhelming because I'm not a horticulturist. That's not my background. So you walk in and you stand there. My husband's pretty good at plants and he's pretty good to work out what we should put together. But me, I just look and think, where do you start? Yeah. Now, if I think that way and I work in the industry, people who don't work in the industry, the 20-somethings, the 30-somethings, I see it in our own. We've got 2 boys and they're 23 and 24. And they're like, can you just concrete the garden? No, we're not doing that. Do you have to have more plants? Yes, you do. And obviously when they buy their first properties, hopefully they'll have a garden or a balcony or something they can use. And I'm sure they'll start to take an interest. At least I hope they really do. But like, how do you get them interested? How do you get them to go into a garden centre and feel comfortable? Like you go into, for example, you'll go into IKEA and they'll have all of these concepts for your kitchens, your bathrooms, your ideas, everything, absolutely amazing ideas. But you don't really get that when you go into a garden centre. You have to figure it out yourself. So we were, for various reasons, talking about varying things. And Alex, my business partner, is only 36. So, he's of that era of, what are you going to do with your garden? And we've spoken to lots of people and they're like, I wouldn't really know where to start. Yeah. So we thought, well, what about doing a concept garden? And Jurassic seemed like the sensible way to go because they're the plants we do. Why would you not go Jurassic? So we're doing a Jurassic-themed one. So kind of the easiest way, I suppose, is it's like an IKEA garden in a box. Yeah. It's not, but do you know what I mean? So yes. You basically say, I have this space. Yeah. I need to fill it with plants. And then we would be able to tell you, right, these are the plants that you need to put in it. this is how you're going to plant it, and at each stage in the year, this is what you need to be doing. So there'll be the whole sort of this, how you're going to plant it, what you're going to plant, and how you're going to care for it moving on. So to make you feel confident that you're going to be able to do this, that you're going to spend out some money and you're not going to kill all these plants. Because well, that is also another concern. But also there's that whole thing as well that I think we are, and I do include myself in this, you know, we're definitely of the I want it now. Why would I have to wait? What do you mean I can't have it tomorrow? Oh,
I know.
We've got very much used to the Amazon way of things.
It's true.
A few years ago, I would have been saying to our boys, what do you mean? That's not how the world works. You could wait a couple of weeks. And now I think I'm nearly as bad as them when they say, well, it'll take a couple. What do you mean it'll take a couple of days? Why? Don't get that. We're so into that. And I think that generation is into that. So if we can give them that sort of more immediacy in it's going to look really good straight away, then they're maybe more inclined to do it. And maybe they'll become confident gardeners. Because I think garden centres, nurseries, they need that in order to continue to keep that level of, customers up.
And that's the thing, isn't it? We need to actually help the next generation, because the thing is that we don't want all these like arts, crafts, pastimes, whatever, hobbies to just take the back seat because everybody's stuck in front of a computer.
No, exactly. But also you want to be planting trees because we need them.
Exactly.
You want to be planting flowers and trees, and we need the bees, we need the butterflies, we need everything like that. And if we're not going to have planted up gardens that are focused on those areas, then we're going to be in even bigger trouble than we think we're going to be in anyway.
See, I don't feel at all guilty now when I go to the garden centre and I come back and my husband says to me, well, it looks like a jungle out there already. Do you need another plant? Yes, I do. There's need.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Actually, we have it the other way around. My husband is the one, he's like, and I'm like, how many more do we need? He's like, you can never have enough. Okay. Okay. And what are we changing to this year then? What's this year's theme? And obviously loads more tree ferns every time. There's always a constant on what's my next tree fern.
Always. So that's really interesting to know that you're sort of trying to move the business as well into sort of another avenue as such. I mean, because we can get these times, just like we saw with COVID, that things can go woomph. But I would imagine you were probably one of the ones who were quite busy, like us, because people were spending more time in the garden and online was still going.
Yeah, I mean, in a weird way, and it seems awful sometimes to say it, it was a bit of a godsend for horticulture. So I just joined the business in January 2020. I know, fantastic timing. Alex had joined in June 2019. This is just before we bought the business. We were coming in to learn it, and we start in January, and then of course, whatever 12 weeks later, beginning of March, it was like, wow. And then people were cancelling all their orders, and we'd got loads of containers on the water. So there was a little bit of a panic moment on, oh, what's going to happen? Wow. And then all of a sudden, of course, the government then said garden centres can open, and then the floodgates opened.
Yes.
And it was great for many, many businesses within horticulture. And actually, in a way, it was probably really good just to remind people how important your space is, whether it's a balcony, whether it's a terrace, whether it's a big garden, a small garden, whatever it happens to be. Everybody was reminded, actually, it's really important to have those spaces as well, and to remember that you can actually use them all year round, because we're all great to use them for that small period of time in this country. Same in Ireland, a few months, probably less in Ireland. That few months, no, definitely less in Ireland. That few months, then you forget about it for the rest of the year. Whereas actually, if you plan, you could potentially use your garden 12 months of the year, and you should be. Because it's actually very calming and very nice when you go out into your garden and you just sort of forget about the world. And actually, that's really, particularly at the moment, that's probably
See, that's why I'm a fan of an evergreen. It's method to my madness.
Absolutely.
Then I bring a bit of colour every now and again. It'll just pop up. And
that's what you want, isn't it? So you've planned it nicely, so you're good at this then.
I'm not bad. I think that I learned a lot from my grandparents. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? We can learn so much from the internet's used obviously sometimes for bad things, but there is the good element as well, isn't there?
Yeah, there is. And even if it's either our website or our customers' websites. There's always lots of information out there, and lots of the garden centres do a massive amount to support people in buying plants, and it's just making sure that they access that. And we just want to make sure that the younger generation realise that it's not just an old person thing.
No,
you know,
it's definitely needed.
Oh my God, yeah, it's trendy, it's cool. Come on, people.
Now then, you've come to my favourite part of the
should have worried.
It's the quick fire question round.
It could be disastrous.
I would love to know who your gardening hero is. Who do you love to watch?
I actually really like Adam Frost, because I think he's really normal. He's just really, he just makes it seem really easy, and he doesn't talk about it as if it's some mystery. It's just an easy thing for everybody to do and everybody to access. I just think he's really normal. I really like him.
Yeah, Monty Dunn as well. He's a nice calming, he's soothing.
Calm,
It's like having a hot chocolate at the end of the day, isn't it, Monty Dunn? He's like the gardening equivalent of hot chocolate. I just find that, and you know, it's like, I'm not really a gardening enthusiast, but when you see the Chelsea Flower Show and you see Adam and all the others,
they're brilliant.
You think, he's Monty. We're all right. We're all calm in the world. We've got a Monty.
Exactly. I think that way about Adam Frost. I think he's really good like that. He's got a nice way about him. Really nice way about him.
If you were a plant, what would you be?
That's a really hard one, because I mean, everybody else expect me to say a tree fern. Yeah, I do love them, and absolutely. But I think probably based on the conversation I was having in the office earlier, I really like orchids, because they don't actually take a lot of work, and I still don't kill them, which is really, really good. My husband would probably disagree that I do probably take a lot more work than I think I do. But for me, I think I don't take as much work as that. So I quite like them, because, you know, they don't take a lot.
I'd probably be a cactus, so it's a bit like, don't touch me. Don't touch me, especially at like 5 or 6 in the morning.
That's not a real time, although I do get up early. But anyway,
if you could go anywhere in the world to see amazing plants and trees, where would it be?
Well, kind of 2 places, I suppose. One is, I'm very lucky that we get to go to Australia once a year in November to see our suppliers, which is great, because then I don't have to put my summer clothes away until after we come back. So we're quite lucky on that one. And there's lots of really interesting plants, and also animals that are trying to kill you there too, but lots of interesting plants too. But I'm actually going to Malaysia in October.
Oh, very nice.
Yes, I am very excited, because we were 30 years married this year, myself and my husband.
Well done you.
Yes, thank you very much. And so Malaysia was, I don't know why we chose, I can't even remember why we chose Malaysia. I think my husband just really liked the idea of it, and we thought, well, why not? And I think they will have the most amazing things to look at. So I'm actually really excited about that as well.
I could imagine.
Yeah.
Now then, if you could get your ferns and pines and your concept into any famous person's garden, get in their backyard, who would it be?
Can I have 2?
Oh, go on then.
No, thank you. Well, King Charles would be one, definitely.
Oh, yeah,
he'd have some already.
He'd love that.
Yeah, he would definitely, because he's big into all of that sort of area of horticulture, everything, and sustainability.
He'd talk to them probably as well, I could imagine.
Yeah, they'd probably do really well, I suspect, as well. And actually, Mary Berry.
Oh.
I'd really like to be
Queen Mary.
Yeah. I'd actually think that would be pretty impressive. Because, like, she looks amazing anyway. And when you see programs on her garden, looks absolutely stunning. So I think some tree ferns in her garden would be amazing.
Do you actually get that then, where you actually look at people's gardens on TV? Because I mean, I look at that Chelsea Flower Show and I look at all the concepts and I think, I like that. How can I do that? And then sort of my husband has a panic attack thinking that I'm going to try and emulate that next week.
Just do a little smaller version of it. It'd be fine. You can do that.
Yeah.
No problem.
Mini version.
Yeah, mini version. That's all you need to do. Downscale it a little bit.
Well, Róisín, you have been an absolute delight.
Oh, thank you.
I have loved every moment of this. And you guys, I know that you will have loved this podcast. You can't help not. She's so fantastic to interview.
Wow, thank you. You've made it easy.
Have I? Well, that's
yes,
really good. Well, if you would like to find out more details about HSK, about the ferns, about the pines, about the concepts and anything else that they do, we're going to put all the details in the bio and on the screen, etc. So you can get in touch with them. And don't forget, if you would like a podcast, be it maybe a little bit fun at times, The details will be there for you to get in touch with us too. So, Róisín, thank you so much for coming in. It's been an absolute pleasure. And I can't wait to see how this business continues and goes from strength to strength in the future. It will do.
Fingers crossed it does.
It will. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.